And welcome back, y'all. During this April 25th workout, I reviewed a lot of ideas and reasons for offense and defense. I might try to wrap this up in this part 6 and most likely a part 7. So you might see some video editing cuts. This is to remove some reviews that we already did a couple of times. There's a time and place to beat a dead horse, hopefully figuratively. So, what I'm doing is a basic practice while moving and rotating around in a circle. In this case, my point is you don't need a lot of room to be able to work in 360 degrees, even if it is standing in place and turning. Limited space forcing you to take small steps is fine. A lot of good can come out of it. Okay, I'm not into some prominent foot rotations during a punch. I've seen the technique used well, but I've also seen it applied poorly. Poorly means the rotation and lift can compromise your power and balance, and it can make it harder to quickly transition into a different position. This can be for either foot in your stance. It shouldn't be too hard to see it, right? Like most things, there's a balance between effective and wasteful. Some rotations and lifts are fine. They can be like the finishing touches on a strike or that subtle bit of extra angle or lean to apply weight and force. The same goes for the shoulder with the punch. If you overextend, you can increase a weak and vulnerable zone. You could lose some benefits of your core and center mass, such as balance. This position here has a reasonable rear foot lift. It complements the forward striking force and is quick to transition to something else. If I were to overextend, my stance increases in restriction and my balance forces my options to be about going forward. Mix and match your punch intensities, the pace, velocity, from jab-like and loops to snaps, pops, and something crisp. One term for this is lulling your opponent. It can be a few soft punches, a slower pace, then quickly switch to a fast or powerful punch and barrage. Now working from the guard or in general, when throwing a body punch, do not excessively lower your hands first before throwing the punch. It's okay for there to be some movement at the level of your hand position, mixed with some body movement as well, and it's good for flow and reaction time. But an excessive drop in your hands can be a defensive liability, and it can telegraph your strikes. Practice and play around with the traveling line from your punch to the target. If your punch to the face looks like your punch to the gut, well then, that can make you a tough opponent to read and to react to. The uppercut. I mentioned this before. It doesn't have to be a short, close-range strike. Also, the uppercut you throw to strike under the chin is a bit different than the one you throw to strike the gut. In either case, your body position and angles will help you make it possible. This also includes foot positioning. Defensively, you can certainly meet some of your opponent's punches, but don't overextend. Straight arm reaching out is poor. Practice your steps in different situations, to and from and during offense and defense. Balance will be one of your key stance factors. You'll be able to feel it. Something is wrong if your stances are fighting and restricting you. I'll edit out the elbows for now and save for a separate video review. Look here, a subtle lulling pace. A front kick that just interferes, maybe bottles your hands a bit. Then it switches to another gear. We'll review Superman punches another time. Subtle switching of intensity. Okay. We're done clashing. We start to come together again. And boom. You're never done clashing. Always remember that. If you're going to sashay to the middle of the ring, you might have a hard time jumping back into the correct pace. Especially if your opponent's similar sashay is a trick. Also, be careful when you follow. Let's get extra technical. The squaring up of your body, your stance, full facing your opponent can be tricky in transitions. Simply put, from the square, you could transition to either-sided lead. Sure, your opponent can still defend, but it can be much more difficult to predict what to defend. Again, the changes. Careful when you follow. This is chess, not checkers. Make sure your stance doesn't telegraph the kick. Crescent and front kicks. I'm just checking the recording time. A couple of sidekicks, and then I'll edit and cut out the knee strikes. We'll save that for a different video. But we can take a look at kicking to the knee. At longer distances, it's like a notably low sidekick. In close it is too, but you can also involve a hammering down effect, like stomping, which really capitalizes off your weight force driving downward. The support foot certainly can pivot. The in-close stomp down can get away with half pivots, or depending on your position to the target, you could just chamber and stomp down on their knee with very little pivot. Alright, for punching combos, alternating should provide you a natural flow from one punch to the next. But when throwing multiple punches with the same hand, develop some versions which don't require you to do a complete dedicated rechamber for each punch. You can do this by compensating with your body rotations and angles. Yes, this can increase your speed, but it also allows you to be in more control of your punch commitments, so you can quickly change some of those punches into fakes, and fakes into punches. Alright, we'll stop here. See you in the next part.